We also have a very big privilege and honor to have Dr. Robert Lilim. Welcome on the show.
Thank you very much, Amon, and I'm happy to be here.
Interesting. You have seen and heard from my guest in the studios of UBC. We're going to give you that detailed information about DEEP. We're going to, Dr. DEEP. We're going to go down the rabbit hole of Dr. DEEP in details. It is in Kenya, here in the neighborhood. It is in Ethiopia. It is in Djibouti. And we have a very big privilege and honor to have it here in Uganda. It has been doing wonders, and I'd love to know those wonders. But the person behind this, Dr. DEEP, is none other than Honorable Engineer Irelenek. How has the journey been? What is Dr. DEEP, and what is your mandate, and how far have you gone in achieving this very noble mandate?
Thank you very much, Amon, for hosting us in UBC, our national TV station. I'm actually delighted that I'm here today to explain the origin and the development of Dr. DEEP. Over the period I have been in this docket from February 2013. Dr. DEEP came about as a result of the influx of Congolese refugees into Uganda in 2014, when I was already minister in this docket. And we had intended in Koboko district. We naturally was nearer the former refugee settlement, which is in Koboko, and we wanted to settle them there. So when I went to the land where they were settled, the host communities were very hostile. They did not want the refugees to be brought there, because the previous refugees who were there from South Sudan, as when they left after attaining peace in their country in 2012, the UNHCR uprooted all the water sources that they had built for the refugees, and these water sources were shared by the host community. They also dismantled the schools because they had erected movable structures, and even they dismantled the health center. And the people of Koboko were very, very, very upset about what happened, and they did not want any more refugees in their settlement. So I had to have a protracted negotiation with them. I was with Honorable James Ubaba, who was their member of parliament, and I assured them that this time when the refugees settle there, it will be different, because we shall ensure that no disruption will take place of that nature. The water sources for refugees will be the same they are going to use. The schools for refugees will be also used by the host communities, and we are going to build there a health center that will be used by both, and if refugees leave, all those facilities will remain for the host communities. They looked at me, somehow they trusted me. And I earned their trust, and I'm really grateful to those elders. And so the refugees were settled there. And then we held discussion with the country representative, the UNHCR, at that time in Uganda. We came with the idea that whatever projects invested in refugee districts must serve both the host community and also the refugees.
And they accepted to that?
And they accepted. Previously, that was not the case. They accepted. And therefore, we agreed that the project should be strategically located in a way when the refugees leave, the host community can continue to maintain it and use the facility. And once that was agreed, we wrote a project addressing exactly that concept and forwarded it to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. In 2015, the High Commissioner for Refugees came to Uganda, and he donated us 31 million euros for the purpose, to implement that concept.
As a loan or a grant?
Grant. He gave us grant for refugee host community project. The project we used to call ReHope. Refugee
I remember
host
that.
Community. So that money, we made sure that every district where refugees were, at that time there were about 10 districts, all of them got portion of that money to address the projects that they have come with. That would address the shortcomings arising from the influx of refugees and the increased population. So, for example, in Koboko, they built a big secondary school, A-level secondary school, a very beautiful school, mixed school. And in other districts, they address other challenges like water and so on, and schools. Now, in 2006, we had we had a conference in Nairobi in connection with the Somalian refugees. There were many of them wanted to go back, and the UN wanted to support their return to their country and settlement. Since that time, then Somalia had stabilized and there was some elements of peace. But in that conference, I raised the issue. I gave the example of Dr. Deep, of the Hope project, which was functioning well. And the host communities are happy now to live with the refugees. And I mentioned to them that really, with this, our population can live with refugees in harmony. Because previously, when the UN...
Because you had tested the impact of ReHope.
Exactly. Because previously, there was hostile relationship between refugees and host communities. And this was accepted. Eventually, I made it emphatic that if there is no such support coming, Uganda may decide to send back the refugees.
Okay. And
this one threatened them, a little mild threat to the UN and the World Bank, who then held a quick meeting and decided that they are going to now give money to these IGAD countries hosting refugees to address the host communities.
Interesting. And that's how Dr. Deep was birthed.
Yeah. Then they gave us initially $50 million soft-term loan, which we brought here, Parliament approved it. And then that was the beginning of Dr. Deep.
Okay.
And then we later on, after a year, the second year, they now added another $150 million from the World Bank on grant. It's a grant to develop Dr. Deep. I must say, I will come back to you, Honorable. Let me engage a significant person when it comes to Dr. Deep, and you have been in this project for some good time.
Yes.
I think from the time it was birthed.
Yes.
I would love to get the connection between Dr. Deep and the East African community and also IGAD.
Thank you very much.
As you give us the current status of Dr. Deep,
right.
Because the Honorable has given us the background, how it came into place.
Right. Dr. Deep is really a regional project. And regional, it means it is covering a number of countries, but particularly from the Horn of Africa. Those countries include Ethiopia, Kenya, Djibouti, Uganda, and lately Somalia was added to the list of the countries benefiting from Dr. Deep. In each of these countries, the project is actually called Dr. Deep. So you have Dr. Deep Kenya, Dr. Deep Ethiopia.
Many
Uganda,
people thought Dr. Deep was a person.
Indeed, it is an acronym.
I've come to know that it is a project.
Yes, it's an acronym. We shortened it so that it's easy. It's a mouthful of words. Development Response to Displacement Impact Project. As the minister said, this is really as a result of the decision of the heads of state of IGAD and the ministers, who then agreed to go to the World Bank, approach the World Bank as well, and get a facility to support the host communities, not the refugees, the host communities, meaning the citizens of those countries who are hosting refugees in their area. And this is because at that time, the entire Horn of Africa was actually very, very fragile in terms of the displacement, forced displacement of people, because there had been many conflicts, violence, failed political processes that resulted into wars, and therefore it led to many people leaving their original countries of abode and going for refuge to other countries. This is how Dr. Deep becomes a regional initiative. Now, when it comes to Uganda, as the minister said, Uganda was initially allocated 50 million US dollars to start the project of supporting communities who are experiencing high burden of hosting refugees. Now, in terms of the status of the project implementation, one would like to begin from what was the purpose of this project. First, the project was meant to alleviate, to reduce the burden when it comes to access to the social basic services which refugees and host communities were sharing. And the minister mentioned initially that by hosting refugees, we had invited new guests to join us in our schools, to join us in the health centers, to access the same water sources. And because of the model of open door policy approach that Uganda is actually implementing, highly regarded as progressive, it meant that we had to lift up the action of supporting the communities that are involved in hosting refugees, because most of them had settled in our communities and they were sharing these services with us. So the second aspect of the objective is not only access, but also to address the questions of energy and natural resource management. As you notice, our country does not put refugees in camps and lock the door and say, let them stay there separate from us. No, they live and stay in what we call settlements, where they have some piece of land, and within there they are able to farm, they are able to make their own living, and free to enjoy all rights as human beings in dignity and pride. And that is really the difference between the Uganda's approach and many other countries in terms of refugees. So natural resources management became a very serious issue, including energy. 100% of the refugees were using our wood, our trees, our natural resources to access their to get their energy needs, to build their houses where they stay, their places of abode, and this impacted negatively on our natural resources. The third aim of the project was to address the questions around livelihoods of our people. As you know, once you increase the number of people in a place, then the challenges of how do people continue to engage economically becomes a question. So we had to look at supporting our communities in terms of raising their livelihoods together with the refugees, because there will be competition in markets, competitions in productions, but all this, if orchestrated properly, can turn into a fortune rather than a misfortune. And that's where now Dr. Deep comes in very well. So where are we in terms of implementation, as you have said, the status? The minister said that the total budget is $200 million. 50 million is a credit.
Some good money there.
Yes, 50 million credit and 150 million it was given to us as a grant. And we apportioned these resources specifically to address the burden in mainly the districts and the localities which were hosting refugees.
Is it equally distributed to the 15 districts that are hosting refugees in Uganda?
No.
Or you started with some part and then the other one?
No, the wisdom then was, can we look at the population of refugees and which of the districts actually hosts more refugees, and therefore the burden is high. So the formula includes the question of, number one, the population of refugees. Secondly, the land surface area where refugees and the population is living in. And thirdly, the poverty levels of those areas. As you know, the north, west, east of our country all have different poverty levels. All these were put in the formula, and that is how the indicative planning figures per district were generated. And we apportioned this more to infrastructure. The government decided in the beginning, in terms of the wisdom guiding this project, was invest more in infrastructure, because when we do so, we will have the capacity to deliver more services to our people. Okay. So health, education, water, and as we see now, we have already absorbed all the $200 million. It has been removed from the World Bank and brought to Uganda and turned into products, turned into inputs.
We are going to look into that, the impact that 200 has caused. Yes. But allow me go back to the Honorable Engineer Eli Onek. Allow me cross over to you, and you update us and update the country about the refugee situation in Uganda. How are the numbers? Is it increasing? Is the situation worsening? Do you need our prayers, or you are containing the situation?
Well, in our region, the IGAD and East African Community Sub-region of Africa, we have a total of 4.8 million refugees and 9 million of internally displaced persons in countries where there are conflicts and so on. Of that number of refugees, Uganda is now hosting approximately 1.6 million refugees. 1.6 million are distributed in the 15 districts where the refugees are being hosted. And these are the districts of Adjumani, Lamor, Koboko, Moyo, Ubongi, Yumbe, Madokolo, Terego, Hoima, Kikube, Kirandongo, Isingiro, Kamwenge, and Chegegwa. In all these districts. Yeah, but the number of refugees hosted vary from district to district, depending on the size of land available. So that is the situation now. So far as we are concerned, as government, we don't have much challenges, particularly with the implementation of Dr. Deep, which actually addressed most of those fundamental requirements, like health services, schools, the infrastructure, limited infrastructure we did, like the roads and so on, and also addressing environment, etc. So far, it is going well. As I'm speaking now, there are even more refugees still coming, mainly now from Democratic Republic of Congo, because of the turbulence and the lack of order in the eastern part of Congo. So that's the situation. Under this situation, first of all, we cannot close our doors. People who are running away to save their lives. And therefore, that is for humanity, we have to really look for and protect the lives of these people.
But also, Honorable, in June, Uganda joined the rest of the world to celebrate World Refugee Day, if I'm not mistaken, and I remember the event was really colorful. And later, was it a week later, there was a high-profile conference of ministers from East Africa and from EAC and IGAD. And one of the serious concerns of that very conference was to channel for the durable solutions for the refugee problem. I would love to give us the comment on those two events, if you don't mind.
First of all, Uganda currently is the largest country hosting the largest number of refugees in Africa. We are among the first 5 in the globally. And the rest, for example, of the 4.8 million refugees, about 3.2 million are distributed to these IGAD countries and other East African countries. Now, this conference, which we called in June of this year, after the hosting of the Refugee Day, incidentally, the Refugee Day, it cannot be a celebration. It's a day of commemoration of the fact that we still have refugees, and with all that goes with the suffering of refugees and so on. It's a commemoration. Because being a refugee is not something to be celebrated.
It's not a privilege.
No. So it was just a commemoration. Thereafter, I called for ministers, my counterparts from East African community countries and also from IGAD countries to Kampala, mainly to address the issue of refugees. Being the country with the largest number of refugees, we thought we have to harmonize our policies in this region. And because in some countries like Kenya at the time, they were having encampment, putting refugees in a camp, a closed camp, and where they are not moving out. In Uganda, we have a different policy of putting them in settlements where they live like home. And also the policies in Uganda of allowing refugees to work and empowering refugees, etc. In some of these countries were non-existent. So in this conference, we all agreed that they adopt Ugandan model. The East African countries all agreed to adopt the Ugandan model of hosting refugees, where refugees are given opportunity in their lives and they're empowered, and they to have another chance. And with this, I'm glad to say we are now seeing transformation, changes in neighboring countries. Like Kenya, from encampment, they now change, they're moving into settlement system, like in Uganda. And even they're softening their policies towards whatever they're giving the refugees. To us, this is a success, because if all these our neighboring countries treat refugees equally, then the refugees will easily find that it's easier now to go to the nearest country and not necessarily all run to Uganda, and we get overloaded because the number is big, and our economy, first of all, to address the needs of security for refugees, needs for health, and even the land area is getting a bit challenging. And now we are hoping that refugees will now be able to go to many other countries, and we distribute the load uniformly in the region.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable. Allow me go back to you, Dr. Lilim. You just mentioned the $200 million US. I'm not asking you to give us the accountability, but I would love us to know about the impacts and the projects that you've been doing in the 15 districts you just mentioned.
Yes, thank you very much, Amon. The impacts of a project such as this one, which is a development project,
the major ones,
addressing society that has been displaced and now being grafted into a new society, has to begin with the question of acceptability. As a result of the implementation of Dr. Deep, we have noticed, of course, in addition to all the other interventions we have put in the refugee management, we have noticed the increase in cohesion between the refugees and the host communities. These are impacts. Acceptability of refugees is now very high. The minister has just told you that because of Dr. Deep, there is now a high demand of the project called Dr. Deep in many districts. And there is even a demand to host refugees, acceptability to give land to refugees. Why? Because it shows that for the first time, government has put a very, very serious action on host communities and reward them, support them, encourage them so that they can bear the burden of hosting refugees. Now, in terms of particular investments, we have invested in sectors like health, water, education, and roads. These are basic social service related sectors. In health, we have constructed all the issues that talk about the service delivery, outpatients, inpatients, laboratories.
Is it okay to make mention of some of the projects you have done in some districts, like would say we have done this project in this district?
Yes, for example, in Isinjiro, if you go to Charugaju Health Center, which used to be Health Center 2, and when Dr. Deep investments were brought in, Ministry of Health was able to actually upgrade the health center to Health Center 4, which means it has now obtained the infrastructure required by the standards of Ministry of Health. If you go to Chegegwa, we actually invested in the Health Center 4 in the Chegegwa Town Council, and it has now been upgraded to become a hospital for the district. And that meant we had put everything from the water, antenatal, children's ward, theaters, mortuary, all that is required to run a hospital. When you go into communities where Dr. Deep has invested, in Itula, for example, in Obongi, we have put in a lot of infrastructure for secondary school and primary schools, teachers' houses, where teachers are now able to stay in school, have their accommodation taken care of, the laboratories, the ICT centers, and children are now able to enjoy. In Lamour, in Palabek, in communities where we have actually invested, you will see the difference in water supply. We have put, for example, 21 water supplies, which are piped water, up to the community. And communities are now enjoying the water, which they didn't have before. If you go into Koboko, we have a bridge, which was one of the most striking difference that Dr. Deep has made in terms of impact. It's called the Motor Bridge. The Motor Bridge connects South Sudan and Uganda. It used to be just a few pieces of wood in a big river where people were going to cross to the next country, and people were sinking and being drowned. Now you go there, you have a modern bridge. Such a wonderful impact, and people are now increasing in terms of trade, their travel time, and enjoying their living and increasing their revenue. If you go into Nachivale, we have a lake there, where which is neighboring the refugee settlement. It was degraded. It was completely getting silting, and water was getting brown. What we did, we actually put in a rehabilitation program for the neighboring areas of the lake. Now you have a very good ecosystem. Both the terrestrial and the aquatic life has started to live again. These are the kind of impacts this project has done. In these districts, the 15 districts, some of them are new districts which had no headquarters. Some of them were old districts which didn't have headquarters. You go to Chegegwa, we have one of the modern state-of-the-art headquarters, and you cannot believe what the people are doing there. They are now serving their society with such level of happiness. Kiriandongo, we have put a district headquarters. We have completed a district headquarters in Kamwenge, a whole district, new district headquarters in Terego, and you cannot believe the level of satisfaction that's going on in our people because of investments of Dr. Deep. The investments of Dr. Deep have had far-reaching impact in terms of increasing enrollment in schools where we have, invested, classrooms, teachers' houses, and other facilities that are required. In terms of saving life in hospitals, the maternal systems have increased good and safe delivery of mothers when they are giving birth. This has increased maternal health and childhood health. We have also, in the same vein, partnered with other development partners, and we have brought nutrition services. We have what we call the NutriCash, where we support mothers that are pregnant within these communities, mothers with children less than 2 years, and we give them additional resources to support the nutritional needs. And now we are seeing Dr. Deep also contributing to the fight of malnutrition. We have got, for example, a very interesting work we are doing with WFP. During the COVID time, we were able actually to transfer cash to help ameliorate the consumption, household consumption in some of these districts that are hosting refugees. And this experience has been, used by other countries to improve their projects. We have had visitation, learning visits from Nigeria. Nigeria came here to learn about the revolving, fund which we have for communities. Somalia came here to learn about the community-based delivery systems. Kenya came to learn about the community procurement. One of the magic of Dr. Deep is actually the lesson learned around community procurement. Most of these investments that you see here were procured using mechanisms that are involving communities from the beginning to the end. We had visit, Ethiopia came here to see how we have been able to restore our natural resources and manage the ecosystems that you refugees and host communities are managing. These impacts are lasting. These impacts have shown us that we can live together with refugees. That's why the acceptability is high. And in our language, we call it the asylum space for refugees has now increased. And this example is being used by the world to learn how to bring the nexus between humanitarian response, which used to be the mode of taking care of refugees globally, with development and peace promotion. This nexus has happened in Uganda with our policy supported by our president that it must be, let's support our brothers and sisters, running away from problems, running away from danger, running away from the possibility of death, because that society where they're in is now unable to take care of them. So when other countries are closing doors, in Uganda we are opening our doors to our brothers and sisters from Congo, from South Sudan, from Somalia. And this is the human spirit, which the minister was talking about. This is the Ubuntu, if you want to call it in our local language. And that is the expression of who we should be. That's the true humanity that we must always extend.
All right.
That is happening because of the Dr.
Talking about that, and with those impacts and projects that you have established,
yes.
After setting such facilities, do you go back and monitor them? Do you maintain them? Whom do you hand over to them? Is it the district leadership? Is it UNHCR? Who is responsible? Because we don't want to set such beautiful facilities and in 1 year there are no more. Thank you very much. During the design of this project, the wisdom was that we should invest in the existing government infrastructure, because that is already the infrastructure which are being used by refugees and host communities. You remember I said the current schools are overburdened, so we need to put more classrooms. So it's not something white elephant built in a new place. It is actually revamping and increasing the capabilities of the existing institutions and facilities. The water points, we enlarge them, and then we make people have. So why do we do this? Because of exactly the question you have raised, the sustainability. So once you have put a school there, it means the school already has teachers. Then the Ministry of Education will add more teachers in there. And then even if the refugees are not there, they will continue to manage it because it is our own infrastructure for Uganda. When you put in the water systems there, the Ministry of Water has a policy of having what we call the umbrella organizations for the water management. And this is really the civil society helping the government and communities to manage the water facilities in the rural areas. When it comes to the health facilities, we actually invest in the existing. You heard me talking about the health centers, which were originally Health Center 2, now becoming Health Center 4. Health Center 4 becoming hospitals. These are infrastructure which are already managed by our government, by our districts, the local governments, and they will continue to be doing so. Now, we have a sustainability plan for each of these investments, and we are, through this, sustainability plan, we identify the roles and responsibilities
of the critical players. We call them the stakeholder analysis. And then we assign the actions now and the actions after the project. And we have also agreed with the Ministry of Finance that, to implement what we call the transition agenda, where for infrastructure which we have put in the refugee camps, into settlements rather, there is a way in which we are going to transit them progressively into the government responsibility. The Ministry of Education is already coding them, bringing in the grants and some, supplementary investments there, paying the sum of the teachers. If the teachers were being paid under the grant using either HCR or NGO, 10 teachers, now Ministry of Education takes 5 teachers and then eventually 7 teachers and then all the teachers. And this transition plan is being well developed and will definitely take us to the point of controlling and sustaining these investments for a long time.
Thank you. Our dear viewer, we are still on UBC and we're taking into account of Dr. Deep development response to displacement impacts project. And we have in the studios of UBC Honorable Engineer Hilal Onek, and we also have Dr. Robert Limlibu, who are the stakeholders when we mention the word Dr. Deep. Let's continue with our discussion, Honorable. There is a conference or an event in December in Geneva, if I'm not mistaken, organized by World Refugee Forum. Is Dr. Deep invited? Is it going to play any role there, or it is an event that you're not bothered about?
Well, before I go into that, I want to just add a little bit on what Dr. Lim has mentioned about the projects. The issue why most projects are failing when government has installed them and left is the question of ownership. It is a major issue. In our efforts, we make sure that the host communities, the district administrators, the leaders own the project by involving them in all the stages of implementation.
Do you involve them from the word go?
From the word go.
From the word go. The project is done.
Even from planning stage, they are part of it. They are all involved. Identification of the project, planning of it, and then its implementation. All these leaders are part of the process. We don't impose ourselves that we know how to do it, no. We make sure that they are in it. And then when we get out, they're already in it. And
because
therefore,
they were part of it from the time.
and therefore they now continue maintaining. And that's how it can be successful. It can remain used by the people attach themselves to those successes. Now you asked a question about this Global Refugee Forum, which is going to happen between the 13th and 15th of December. That is in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now.
Were you invited?
Yes, of course. Of course, Uganda is actually central in some of these organizations. Because first of all, the UN Global Refugee Forum is to address actually the issue related to refugees globally. And the various commitments which were made by the UN from New York on the sustainable management of refugees were all based on Uganda's policy. Most of them have adopted Uganda's humane policy of addressing refugee challenges. And therefore, even in this Global Refugee Forum, which is going to happen in 3 weeks' time, basically, the global community is being drawn to the best practices which Uganda is exhibiting. Because in some countries, refugees are treated just like animals. They are not just part of the... But then they see from our practice that really that's the most humane and that is a good practice. Now, when we go to this Global Refugee Forum, as Uganda, we definitely go with our policies. We are going to pledge to the Global Refugee Forum that we, as Uganda, will maintain our policy on refugees. Although it is also giving us a lot of pressure, because the challenges of maintaining or managing refugees, challenges are increasing with increasing population, with increasing economic demands and challenges. We have challenges. We have to handle those. So in that Global Refugee Forum, we are going to present not only our good practices, but the pressure that those practices are exerting on us, and our desire not to change the policy. And some of the pressures that Uganda is facing right now is, among others, we are to National Development Plan. We have challenges of resources to address those needs.
NDP3?
NDP3 to adequately. And we may have to ask some of our donors to ease the pressure on Uganda when they demand, as we borrow from them, from their countries, to ease the pressure on Uganda, at least since we are the largest refugee hosting country in Africa, and the burden is on us, we need to get support for internationally. And we do expect also Dr. Deep Phase 2 to be addressed, and there we are still negotiating with the donors on Dr. Deep Phase 2. And definitely we have planned it all out. We planned the activities, and we already know what we are going to do if they give us the resources. And this time we shall do much better, because we have learned lessons from the past, Dr. Deep.
Learning the lessons, Honorable, what is your assessment of Dr. Deep in terms of humanitarian development to development approach, humanitarian approach to development approach in terms of refugee management?
Well, it is addressing both. You see, if the refugees come into our country, there's challenges of the resources available for use, or infrastructure availability to sustain increased population. So under Dr. Deep, when we address those challenges, definitely we are addressing the humanitarian needs. We don't deprive our citizens because the refugees have come large numbers. To give example, in my district, for example, when the refugees came, some classrooms which used to host only 40, 50 students were now hosting 200, 240 students. Now, when Dr. Deep came in and more classrooms are added and the schools are expanded, the number of students now reduced to about 50 to 60 students per class. And therefore, the students are able to learn under better environment than when they are. And therefore, we need to enhance those improvements in the next Dr. Deep to even reduce further the number of students per class, so that we can reduce to 40 students. The health facilities, we now have doctors in some of them, after Dr. Deep has uplifted the level of service and equipping with the X-ray equipments, with all other medical facilities. Women find it now easier to give birth in many of these centers than before. Again, talk about my own area, where the hospital used to be in Kitgum, and any mother in Palabek, in my village, who gives birth and the child comes with the leg first, which should require now cesarean operation, most of those women don't reach Kitgum. 40, 50 kilometers away. They die along the way. And I, for one, lost my niece who died along the way to the hospital because of the absence. But today, as I'm talking, there is maternity ward with doctor is already there, or simple operation like cesarean operation can be now carried out. And those are the humanitarian aspect that Dr. Deep is addressing. Of course, human relationships are excellent because Dr. Deep has come in because the refugees are here and were there in the country. So the host community no longer now have that hostile relationship.
Because they're benefiting
refugees.
anyway.
Yeah, they're benefiting. And with the refugees, we have special programs of psychosocial transformation of their mindset. Most of these refugees from Congo, South Sudan, they come from very violent background. And they've seen death, they've seen their parents killed, they've seen all kinds of atrocities. Now,
and they come with the same violence?
They come with the same mind. So we have to work on that mind to see alternative to life, to see civilization, other than just destructive society.
Okay.
And that one has helped a lot. We transform them. We also train them. We have skills training. Our schools where these refugees go, we offer both academic and also vocational alongside academic.
Okay.
If you went to Kiradongo here, there is the vocational side offers training in the motor vehicle mechanics, building technology, and so on and so on. And at the same time, during the morning hours, they learn the normal courses, the normal mathematics, physics, history, and so on, the normal thing that goes into the school.
But Honorable Minister, with our open door policy to refugees, are you not bothered that with time the country will be overwhelmed by the numbers?
Well, the good news is that many of these refugees, when they get such skills, they go back to their country. For example, I have practical example, like there's a technical school in my area of Parabek where we trained close to 1,000 to more than 1,200 South Sudanese refugees in building, in masonry, in motor vehicle mechanics, in other skills. And over 800 of them went back to their country. And because they see more opportunity there. Here in Uganda, there's no opportunity.
Okay. Honorable Minister, allow me bring in Dr. Lim Lim. What can be done to make sure that Dr. Lim, Dr. Deep, you know, Dr. Lim and Dr. Deep.
Dr. Lim Lim.
Dr. Deep realizes 100% performance.
Wow. Thank you very much. I think the question of 100% is a bit overambitious, but I can say that Dr. Deep, first of all, is performing satisfactorily under most of our parameters, judged from the different assessments we have made. First, we have done a very good impact evaluation. And the evaluation that we have done was an independent evaluation by Makerere University. It has shown that Dr. Deep has exceeded its targets in terms of outputs, although we still have to do a lot more in terms of outcomes and impact. Secondly, as we wind up now, we have to do a lot of completion and a lot of the mopping up of the different activities that are still uncompleted, and we're already working with districts in terms of the specific actions and defining how to close the project when it comes towards the close. But I can assure you that everybody involved, all the stakeholders involved, are up to the task, and we are hoping that by the end of this project, in the next couple of months, we should be able to come back to the population of Uganda and account fully that all the resources have been deployed. The results are now here, and you can demonstrate them. We have got documentation of all the processes as well as of all the outcomes and outputs. They will be archived both electronically and also, physically. And lastly, we're going to have discussions on reviews so that we get the feedback of all the stakeholders from different levels. Document these lessons for the future.
Are there some challenges that you have realized ever since you started on this project?
Yes. First of all, the demand is very high. The gaps in our country. Most of these districts are in the periphery of Uganda. And by virtue of that, the existing infrastructure was not actually adequate. There was really lack of number of schools were few. Even within those schools, the capacities were very, very limited, including the hospitals and health centers. Now, in some places, Dr. Deep has been able to only put up to about 30% of the gap, fill about 40% of the gap, so the demand is high. Secondly, the challenges that we have around the ability for us to mobilize the communities required a lot of time for mindset change, for coherence between the refugees and our communities. Needed a lot of time.
I would love us to continue with this kind of a discussion, but time is against us, and I would love to get your final comments on this. Let me start with you, Dr. Limlim.
Thank you very much, Amon. I want to thank you for the opportunity, but also to thank the government of Uganda for taking leadership in the question of forced displacement. And the policy of open door policy is very progressive. We must not falter in it. We must continue in it. Dr. Deep has made us very proud, has shown us lessons. We will take those lessons forward. Let's continue to push on until our continent drives the agenda even globally. Now we are there, and I think we should continue to do so under the leadership of the minister and the technical teams that we have on the ground. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Honorable Minister.
I would really like to conclude by really thanking our government, thanking the President, General Yoweri Museveni, for really being with us all the way in this program of hosting refugees and enabling the refugees, empowering them, and also alongside that, also giving opportunity through Dr. Deep to empower our population in the rural areas or where the refugees are settled. We are all operating within the NRM manifesto. The program that we have adopted addresses whatever has been written in the NRM manifesto and the National Development Plan 3, whereby we carry out a project to do development and transformation of infrastructure development in the countryside. We also contribute to the livelihood of in the districts where the refugees are hosted. Just like Paris Development Model has come in, and we hope to now augment in those districts further Paris Development Model, so that our country is transformed and we develop prosperity in those areas as examples. We thank you very much, the listeners, and we look forward to again the next Dr. Deep for the benefit of our country. Thank you very much.
Welcome, and this brings us to the end of this discussion. It was really a good discussion. I believe that you picked a leaf on what Dr. Deep is about. It was a privilege having you, Dr. Robert Limlebu, and also Honorable Minister for making time to come to UBC to inspire, inform, and educate the people of Uganda. Many thanks to you, viewer. We are here because you are there on the other side of TV, and we can't thank you enough. More programs are coming your way. Ampaida Amon of Tega is my name. For God and my country, allow me to sign out.
Thank you.